So I was just watching an Adam Neely video where he talks about Freddie Wan and how YouTube is completely at odds with basically any other industry. In the midst of watching that video, I've found some of the confusion and frustrations with my own channel. So I wanted to really quick hop on here and talk. I know this will be a very small viewed video. This is not a very interesting one. I'm hoping to get to the core of audience that watches these videos because this is, I guess, a question, a statement, all of that wrapped into one.
Because nobody cares. Because at the end of the day, there's only two things that matter in the traditional Hollywood sense, which is, did you make anyone any money? Did you win anybody any awards?
One of the things that was said was nobody cares unless you make somebody money or you win somebody an award. And I can totally see that paralleled. I wholly accept that YouTube is completely separate from basically anything else that I do in the music industry. And lately I've had the chance to work on some decent sized records. Nobody gives a crap what I've done on YouTube, and kind of vice versa. So I've been taking a look at what my value proposition is in this space. I love to experiment. I love to do weird, random stuff in the studio. I love having a studio, and if this is your first time here, this really quickly is a very bad camera angle of my space. It's a pretty decent sized space. It's a commercial space. One of the things that I've tried to place into YouTube was to marry my love for gear and new gear, because I think gear's fun. You can either use it as tools and you can see the usefulness and the entertainment therein, or you can view it as a crutch, as something that you can have too much of and gets in the way, or something that you feel like you can never afford, therefore you can't make art. I think all of that is kind of BS. You can make art with whatever you have, wherever you have. Hit records have been made with zero budgets and mics that objectively or subjectively sound like trash. Gear is not going to make or break a record. Gear is one piece of something in 1,001 other pieces that make a song a good song. Every time I put out a stinking plug-in video of just asking, hey, because I hate normal plug-in reviews. I've done a couple of them and I found I'm not very good at them. And then I don't really like watching them. So my thought in asking a whole bunch of pros what we use as plugins is, hey, here's the tools that are actually getting used. You don't have to purchase these tools. These are the things that people are using. Here's a little quick bit of why. I didn't even have all the plugins in that video. I said in the video, the way not to use this is to go and purchase all those plugins, but rather find what works for you. Showing how different everybody's list was kind of the more interesting thing for me. When it comes to gear, I get sent a lot of microphones and outboard gear to try, and you guys probably see 60 to 65% of the stuff that comes in. The rest of it gets packed up and sent back. I didn't like it. It didn't work. I was asked to agree to something I didn't feel comfortable agreeing to, i.e. guaranteeing an opinion, which is not fun. Felt super icky, so I do not work with that company anymore. But one area where I think this is really interesting is mic reviews. That's a fun one. This is something that I feel like I can do well, and it gives me the chance to bring people who otherwise wouldn't have access to a studio like this or studio time like this. And yes, it comes with the caveat of being on camera. But what I found I can do in this space is if a company says, we want to give you a microphone to try, I could just pop it up on my vocal and my instrument, but what I would rather do is get somebody in here in the building and record. I never charge them for it. If they decide to go on and do other services, then that's something that we talk about. But for most, if not all, I'd have to really go back and take a look at this, but most of the microphone videos that I have posted on here where either an artist or a band was being featured in that, basically using the microphone as an excuse to give this band free studio time. I see this as a win-win-win. I have a rough general idea when I get a microphone of what the thought process is behind the functionality of that device, the design philosophy of that device, and like whatever other context clues that I can gather. Maybe it's a company that I've heard of, maybe it's not. What I can take from that is then go to my pool of artists. I'm in northern central-ish Indiana, so there's a pretty blossoming music scene between here, Chicago, Detroit. There's a lot of musicians like within easy driving distance here, and I've put it out on blast a couple times. Who wants free studio time? Who is willing to be filmed, and who is willing to have people be able to go through their raw tracks and files? Which I think is super interesting and kind of a way to break the fourth wall a little bit, like docu-series style stuff. You can see the personality. It's a chance for them to connect with a different fan base and just be themselves rather than kind of this veiled figure creating music in an otherwise black hole. I have definitely seen these two industries segregated, being like the YouTube like creator space and then the music industry at large. And I think being able to take these like microphone tryout videos and put them on a whole bunch of different sources, a whole bunch of different voices, I've found it to be a really fun way to showcase a product. That's a win for a manufacturer, right? It's a way for the band to showcase their music to an audience that may not be aware of them. That's a win for the band. It's hopefully a win for you guys who are getting to see basically real world use cases of this gear. I'm not sure I will ever be a channel that will read specs to you. I don't find that interesting. I'm definitely that guy who would sit down and try to build like IKEA furniture without the instructions. Like, I'm not gonna first think about reading how to make this product work. I'm gonna educate myself in the functionality and then see how it works trial by fire, because this is a commercial space. The videos are kind of a small taste of that, but there are definitely sessions here where cameras cannot be filming and files cannot be shared. But in the moments where I can show you and I can share, the hope is to keep that process as close to real as possible through the lens of how does this gear fit into an overarching view of a session or a general sound, or how can you use this tool in furtherance of an artist's vision of their project. Again, none of these things are necessary for creating records, and it's inevitable on every single one of these videos that one, somebody's not going to like the sounds we got. Absolutely fine. They're not for you. Two, somebody disagrees with the methods that I'm using to test said device, microphone, most of the time, and that's completely fair. If the process of using a piece of gear is overly cumbersome and doesn't work in a real world situation for me, it's not going to stick around very long. Or three, questioning the bias of a product because I was given it and therefore want to maintain a positive relationship with this brand. You can definitely view it through that lens. What I will say is I could really give two craps about making people happy. If I've gotten to the point where a video is out, you can know that I like it. And whether that's biased or not is definitely up to you. I mean, it's certainly biased. I'm telling you right now, if it's gotten to the point of a video being made, I like it because I don't like making overly negative videos. I've done a couple of them, but I would really have to go out of my way to waste my time, to waste your time watching this, to waste the time of the artist who's coming here and creating something, to just say, yeah, this mic sucks. I mean, in a real session scenario, I'm not gonna keep a mic up that doesn't suit the song. And what I've learned from doing a whole lot of these is there's no real wrong answer. They're just different answers. There's different price points. There's a whole lot of different kind of feelings and styles. And there's a push-pull relationship with a mic and a singer and a mic and a cab and a mic and a drum set. And it's exploring those kind of push-pull relationships that will inevitably yield you different performances because everything's happening in real time. That's why microphone comparisons are really, really weird. And they're really hard to do right because, and I've done it before, I have videos on the channel of this where I've lined people up and they've sung on a ton of different microphones and they've come out as different videos, but they're the same song, same singer, different mics. What you end up with isn't necessarily an apples to apples comparison of a microphone. even when that person is standing in front of multiple microphones and singing into said microphones. That's not even really apples to apples, because there's no good way for them to monitor all of those or even one of those at a time. It's that relationship with the microphone that yields a performance. And trust me, I understand, like, coming from a guitar player, I want to be able to control everything about a guitar cab. Let me take a DI, let me reamp it in the most controlled way possible. And that is one way to test a microphone. But when it comes to singing and the heart of a project, the backbone of everything that we work for is the vocal. Everything works to serve the vocal. As soon as you have a label project, the number one thing you're thinking about is the vocal. That's what you're going to get notes on most of the time. And if you do a killer job with the music, but this one word is covered up on this pop record, the vocal is what stands out. The vocal is what needs to be there. I hope I'm driving this home. So I don't think the way I make microphone videos is perfect. I don't think the way anybody makes microphone videos is perfect. I suppose the only way you're really gonna get something absolutely perfect is to have like a surgical testing of a microphone, which already exists for most companies. If you want to go read the specs, but specs are this much of the story. And so much more of it is, well, how does it react to this type of artist, with this type of voice, with this type of resonance? What I hope to offer in these situations is a quick trial by fire, showing you these things in as many different scenarios, albeit common scenarios, as I can under different criteria, all the while making a win for me because I get a microphone, a win for the artist who otherwise wouldn't have access to a recording studio or studio time, and a win for you guys who get to see stuff like this. And hopefully I'm entertaining you or showing you an artist that you can potentially dig in the future, because as this stuff happens, it is unreleased. A lot of times the turnaround on these videos are anywhere from 2 weeks to a month and a half. And this is after I've sat with a mic for 2 to 3 months before that to see, do I like it in a normal session? And can it hang in a full session like this? There's definitely a lot that I've learned. I've learned a ton about microphones since I've started doing stuff like this, and I think the relationship you have with them is definitely important. There is no best microphone. There is no greatest of all time. There is no king of mics. All these things are hyperbole that, I mean, we could use to describe just about anything, but so much of this is subjective given certain circumstances that we place these microphones in, and a lot of them can be nostalgic. If we started using one certain microphone when we started our career, and that's just a sound ingrained into us, or how a lot of my ear is drawn towards like early 2000s stuff. So I have a different taste in a vocal that some of you guys might have, but hopefully showing these things like I'm doing is helpful. And I know this is a bit of a rant, but I kind of think I have a bit of clarity in how I can provide value to the industry along with this. So if this is something that you are into, if this is something you get value from, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you want to go to the Patreon where I put the files for these things, those are always available there. Anyway, guys, thank you for sticking around for as long as you have. I'm Resident Loser Jeremy, and I can't wait to make more. I'll see ya.